This becomes very interesting. Not long after the flood, during the Ice Age, the Neanderthals effectively used distilled birch bark resin to securely haft their spear shafts to their spear points. Let's pause a moment. The Neanderthals invented the first superglue as far as secular science is concerned. They took birch bark resin, they heated it to a specific temperature Fahrenheit, even though I don't know if they had the thermometers, but they knew precisely what to do. It had to be within a range 645 degrees Fahrenheit to 725 degrees Fahrenheit. Below that, it won't catalyze. That is, the molecules won't break apart. Above that, it won't polymerize to form new molecular structures. You need a brand new molecular structure. And birch bark pitch solves the problem. Birch bark uniquely, but it has other characteristics. Now look at that Neanderthal guy. Quite different from the first artisan's representation when Neanderthals were discovered back in the 1800s. They were supposed to be stooped over, brute, lower jaw, receding hairline, like a lot of us modern individuals. But now it is recognized scientifically that Neanderthal had all of the human characteristics that we have, some of them superior. They invented the first cinemas. How did they do that? They took a 70-millimeter disc that was really the bottom of a spindle used to produce yarn, to produce clothing. Outside the Bible, if we look at nothing but secular sources, they were the first to invent clothing, fabric. There's a sketch called The Magdalenian Woman at a Neanderthal site, sketch of a tam, modern type hat, a jacket, pantsuit, slippers, and a purse on her side. Now, she's going shopping. She had to have a purse. All of that from Neanderthal. They invented the first shopping centers along riverbanks in Europe during the Ice Age. They invented the first guilds for manufacturing. They found Neanderthal sites where you could fabricate leather, wood, stone, or metal. They were not dimwits. Now it's recognized that if you're from Europe, how many are from Europe? We all have connections somewhere originally. Well, our forebears, basically all from Europe. It's recognized that everyone from Europe has between 2 and 4% Neanderthal DNA. Last year I was lecturing on Neanderthals, and a lady came up afterwards. She said, I'm a school teacher. My sister is employed in our intel in the U.S., and she said, you notice I'm not of tall stature. The Neanderthals were not tall people. But she said, I was interested in what you had to say about the cranial capacity. We have 1,350 cc's on average. Neanderthal had 1,450 cc's on average. And she said, my sister, who's with intel in our military, wanted to see what our makeup was. And she said, we have the same genetic makeup. So she ran 23andMe. She was 98% identical to Neanderthal DNA. 98%. And they both were professional people. These Neanderthals essentially looked like us. Now, why did one of them have a drooped jaw? Oh, indications are some of them lived to be over 200 years of age. I'm 82 and my jaw's already drooping. If I get over 140, it's really going to droop. Stoop-shouldered? Well, they realized that there was evidence of rickets in his bones, and Everything was distorted slightly. So back to these guys. How did they invent the first super glue? You can Google Neanderthals and super glue and find that they used birch bark resin. They had to heat it between what bracket Fahrenheit? Had to be at least what? 600. Say, in a whole congregation, we'll get the absolute truth. 645, you're right. And the high, it couldn't go above 725. 645 and 725. By the way, every one of you remembered that. You never lose what you're exposed to. It's the recall that's the problem. For all of us, yes. Okay. So, what did they do to? You need to know this. Modern tests have been run to show that there's a narrow range of what they could have done to produce this birch bark resin. When they produce birch bark resin, as it begins to cool, they daubed it at the spear shaft and the spear point, and as it cools, it has an amazing facility to penetrate all the pores, the crevices, and even some of the cells, and into the crevices of the flint, so that if something's going to break, it'll be the spear shaft or the spear point, not the hafting joint. It is that superior. It is super glue. To get that, modern laboratories have determined you have to heat it to at least how hot? 645. 645, at least 645. Anaerobically. Anaerobically. What's that mean? Without oxygen. No free air getting to it. So they had to cover it, probably with salt sand, had to cover it. And in extraction process, they got this special resin, and as it begins to cool, they daubed it. And when it cools completely, you can chew it as chewing gum.